4:12 p.m. Today is March 27th, 2025. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the county boardroom. We'll do a roll call now. Diane Bruce?
Yep.
Jonathan Davidson?
Present.
George Forrest? Absent. Randy Bennett? Absent. And I'm Melissa Kimmerling. Also attending, Carrie Plummer-Galecki, Board Secretary, and Mary Davis, HR Director. So item 1 on the agenda for today is public comments. Carrie, do we have anyone wanting to speak during the open comments portion of the meeting?
Yes, we do. We have Tom Simpek
Okay.
from the Treasurer's Office would like to make a few comments.
All right, Mr. Simpek, please come forward, introduce yourself, and make your comments.
Okay. So again, my name's Tom Simpek. I work over at the Treasurer's Office. On March 19th, we had a heavy snow here in Nebraska. I'm sure all of you noticed. At 5:20, I received a message from my manager who told me we would be closing for that day. After coming to the office the following day, imagine my surprise when I found out this snow day was not reflected as a county closure, but rather as comp time and PTO in my time card. Now I'm sure most of you are aware that a snow day was not called on the 19th per the inclement weather policy. Only the county board chair can call a severe inclement weather closure. After the decision is made, the information would be passed along to the communications manager, who would then pass that along to the department heads and the elected officials. Per the policy, it is then their job to spread that information through the office, leaving them as our final point of contact. Upon learning this, I decided that I would contrast this with the situation for our late start on the 5th of March. In my time card, this reflects as a county closure, and I received 2 hours of time to offset that. On checking the messages I received that day, I received a message from my manager at 5:46 that said we would not be opening until 10. After looking through all this information that I had received, I decided to double check with my managers that they had received the same information from our elected official, and they confirmed that for me. They even provided me with a message log just as a backup. From an employee's perspective, this looks identical to me. This leaves me and my coworkers in a weird spot. We're going forward into the future. How are we to believe any communications about weather and scheduling if we're following the rules to the letter and being punished for it? Are we to question every decision from our managers and elected officials? Personally, I can only see this leading to a hostile and inhospitable work environment. I've been informed that in the past, these proposals, there were proposals going around that would allow our department heads and elected officials the option to declare a limited number of inclement weather days per year. An option like this would allow a greater level of confidence between the employees, the officials, and our commissioners, reducing the opportunities for the breakdowns that led to this incident. I hope that the policy board can take these concerns under further consideration going forward and implement a policy like this or one similar going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment today. All right, moving forward to item 2, approval of the minutes of the February 19th, 2025 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second. All right, motion by Davidson, second by Bruce. Please vote.
Three yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
All right. Item 3, discuss and make recommendations on revisions to personnel rules and regulation Rule 6, Regulation 1, nepotism. Mary Davis, HR Director. Mary, were you contacted by anyone to request to make comments today about this?
I was not.
Okay, wonderful. No one requested to appear before the board. And oh, sorry. I think you get to go ahead. I apologize.
That's okay. Rule 6, Reg 1, nepotism. This policy was just updated back in September of '24. There were not any significant changes to this. I think there was just one red line in there. So, do you guys have any questions for me?
Just wanted to clarify I didn't miss anything, which is that one line there. Okay. And you said no one contacted you to make comments.
Correct.
All right, no one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule, therefore no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve as recommended.
Second. Okay, motion by Davidson and seconded by Bruce. Recommend approval of revisions to personnel rules and regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 1, nepotism as presented. Please vote.
3A, 2 absent, motion carries.
All right. Item 4, discuss and make recommendation on revisions to personnel rules and regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 2, conflict of interest. Mary Davis, HR Director.
Thank you. Rule 6, Reg 2, conflict of interest. As public employees, our personal financial and professional interests cannot interfere with our responsibilities to the county. This policy defines what a conflict of interest is, disclosure requirements, and then possible resolutions to that. And just to note, a lot of the policies we're going to talk today are about conduct. And so you will see throughout these policies language that contain, it's language that we have added to all these policies about supervisories or employees in supervisory or managerial roles and their responsibility to report and or take action for serious violations of code of conduct and things.
I did have a point of clarification. When I'm familiar with processes such as upon your hiring paperwork, you either sign, I understand what is a conflict of interest and I have no at this time. I understand it's my responsibility to bring them forward if one should exist. I'm not clear from this policy whether there's anything acknowledging, understanding what accounts for a conflict of interest, because it seems like they just bring it forward if they think they have something. But I wonder how we know for sure that they know what that would be and whether it would be beneficial to include an annual disclosure. I've reviewed this again. Nothing has come up. Would anything like that be beneficial or has been considered?
I think that that's a good point. And I think that when we have new hires, once these personnel rules and regs are implemented or approved and implemented, then we'll go ahead and have training sessions on those. And so I don't think that that's a bad idea to have the employees sign up on the conflict of interest. And then as we have new hires come in, we can do a better job of explaining that to them. They do go through an orientation, if you will, but we don't have them sign off on the conflict of interest policy, and it might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, because I could see a situation where someone would potentially come to a hearing and say, I didn't recognize, I knew we had this conflict of interest policy, but I didn't understand that would fall into that category, or a manager believe that, or something like that. And so just having that be something, maybe it would protect the county in ensuring that that documentation was provided.
I think that's great. We'll go ahead and start doing that.
Great.
Do you want anything added to the policy on that?
Well, where it states that they would bring it forward if it arose, like in Section 2, I wonder if it's just a paragraph above that says disclosure of the presence or absence of conflict of interest would be upon hire, and then after that, follow this. If anything were to come up, you would bring it forward.
Sure. We'll make that change. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Policy board members, any concerns with that suggestion?
Nope. Can we just make the motion with the approved changes or with those changes added, or do we need to revote after the changes have been made?
I think we can we can approve it with the proposed revisions.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so were you contacted by anyone, Mary, to request to make comments on this?
No, I was not.
Okay. So, no one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule, therefore no comment period was provided. Let's see. Do we have a motion to approve with revisions?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Davidson, seconded by Bruce. To recommend approval revisions to Personnel Rules and Regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 2, conflict of interest with the following changes. So it would be, specific page would be page 1, section 2, add language related to disclosure upon hire. Any further board discussion?
No.
Okay.
Three, four, two absent, motion carries.
Great, thank you. All right, we're moving right along. I think we're on item 5, right? Item 5, discuss and make recommendation on revisions to Personnel Rules and Regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 3, Code of Ethics. Mary again.
Okay, this rule, basically, there was not a lot of changes. The language was updated, but the basic premise is still there. There's certain things you can't do when you're at work. When you get to section 2, that is new. There's a listing of, unacceptable behaviors that would pose serious code of conduct violations. And that includes things like dishonesty, theft, willful destruction of property, working under the influence, sexual harassment, things of that nature. And then we've got language in there about duty to report. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions?
Do you have anything about a definition of insubordination or anything like that anywhere? Is there would the employee know what that was? What would be considered for that?
Yeah, one of the things that we haven't gotten to yet that we will get to is our definition.
Glossary of terms.
Yep, the glossary.
Okay.
So we will make sure that gets defined.
I think that's really important because you wouldn't want anybody to think that they weren't able to have a hard conversation or a challenge or whatnot, but what's the difference between where you cross that line and where you can ask those questions?
I believe that word is already in the glossary.
In the
and
glossary?
I would
Great.
expect that it would
Clarity for the employee
be
there.
maintained.
Great.
So in B of that same section, it tells may result in disciplinary action, and there's 20 things listed. What if there's something else that comes up during that time frame that they're like, wow, this is really going against our code of conduct, although it's not exactly listed, and I can't give you an example off the top of my head, but is there a clause you can add to it to, like when you do a job description, you say another duties as defined?
They have the list is not intended to be exhaustive.
I didn't see that one.
At the end of A, section 2A.
Oh, A, I was in B. Okay, got it. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yep,
But
missed
maybe
one.
that should
Yep.
be
And,
in B also.
and Diana, the principles of compliance under section B are broad enough so that it could be.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Mary, were you contacted by anyone to request to make comments on this?
I was not.
No one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Davidson, second by Bruce, to recommend approval of revisions to Personnel Rules and Regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 3, Code of Ethics as presented. Any further board discussion?
No.
Okay, time for vote.
3 yeas, 2 absent, motion carries.
Okay. Item 6, discuss and make recommendation on revisions to personnel rules and regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 4, whistleblower activities. Again, Mary?
Sure. This regulation provides protection against retaliation for those employees that make good faith reports of law violations, gross inefficiency or misconduct in government, if you will. And one thing that we have added over the course of the last year, I believe, is a hotline. It's called Integrity Counts. And so employees or the public can can call that number or make a report online, and they can make that anonymously, or they can add their name. And so those complaints that come in are reviewed by a group of us here at the county, and then we follow through on what action items are taken on that.
How is that number advertised to external individuals? How would they know that that exists?
That number is, it's on the county's website.
Okay.
And we did add the phone number to this policy, I think.
I see that. Great.
And just one thing about the whistleblower, whistleblower activities, whistleblower protection, speaks to governmental affairs, if you will. And so, but all of our policies, we have language in there that protects the employees against retaliation for making good faith complaints, whether that's sexual harassment, discrimination, any of that kind of stuff too. So
Does this mirror federal whistleblower language?
it does.
Okay. Okay. I lost my place in this. Okay, let's see. Did I ask Mary if you were contacted by anyone to make comments on this one?
I was not.
Okay, no one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Davidson, seconded by Bruce, to recommend approval of revisions to personnel rules and regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 4, whistleblower activities as presented. Any further board discussion? Otherwise, time to vote.
Three yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
Item 7, discuss and make recommendation on revisions to personnel rules and regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 8, electronic communications. Mary?
Yes, this regulation outlines acceptable and unacceptable use of county electronic communications. There is no expectation of privacy, or the employee should have no expectation of privacy when it comes to using county equipment, whether that's email, searching the internet, things like that. IT does monitor that kind of stuff. And typically, if we've got issues with that, they will let us know that, people are flagged or whatever, and they'll let us know that. But this is just language cleanup, and there's not a whole lot of changes except for just updating the language.
Is it, in light of recent events? Is
Good
it?
one.
Thank
I don't know
you.
what she's talking about.
Thank you. Is it clear what type of information should be even shared through these channels? Or is there anything, and I apologize, I'm just
No.
thinking of this right now.
You're fine.
Is there anything to help the employee understand what work shouldn't occur on a personal device versus do we encompass that as well? Or is this only talking about what occurs on the devices owned by the county? Or does it also encompass, these are the things that we would not want you to access, do, or communicate about on your personal device? Or is that a totally different thing?
That would be, and Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, the IT has a committee that meets, and they go over all the information and security policies.
Yes.
So those are in addition to this.
Okay.
This is just basically telling the employees,
Yeah.
listen, you can't
Yeah,
send derogatory, discriminatory, harassing emails, that kind of stuff.
we can see what you're doing because we own it and we got to check it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Discussion. Okay. Mary, were you contacted by anyone to request to make comments?
No, I was not.
Okay. No one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion by Davidson and seconded by Bruce to recommend approval of revisions to Personnel Rules and Regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 8, Electronic Communications as presented. Any further discussion? Otherwise, time to vote.
Three yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
Okay. Moving forward to item 8. Item 8, discuss and make recommendation on revisions to Personnel Rules and Regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 8, Political Activity. Mary?
This rule basically outlines and provides examples of exactly what political activity means. Basically, in a nutshell, you cannot engage in political activity while you are working or you're being paid to work for Sarpy County. So, you do that on your own time, with your own equipment. You can't use county equipment, things of that nature. So that kind of outlines that. We did add a section we went into further detail as to what is considered political activity, because sometimes people just don't think of those things.
Right. For a salaried individual whose, work hours might not be as set in stone related to time cards and whatnot, are they still able to, for example, one of the things is not, go door to door kind of thing. Are they still able to do that on their own time?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. It's
On their own time.
connected to, and when it's a salaried employee, we're assuming that traditional work day is their day. So their evenings and their weekends, we wouldn't have a conflict there.
Not at all.
Okay. But still no computers, none of their, resources, no printing, not at work.
Not at work.
Okay. All right, Mary, were you contacted by anyone on this to request to make comments?
I was not.
All right, no one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Davidson and seconded by Bruce to recommend approval of revisions to Personnel Rules and Regulations, Rule 6, Regulation 8, Political Activity. If no further discussion, time for vote.
Three yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
All right, on 9 out of 14, Mary, you're doing great. Thank you. All right, item 9 is to discuss and make recommendations to harassment and discrimination policy. Mary?
And this is new for this board. The county has had an anti-discrimination harassment policy for a number of years. It was included it was in the policy bulletins, if you will, and they were not presented to the Personnel Policy Board. So this includes updated language. There is the policy actually addresses discrimination, harassment, sexual intimidation, a hostile work environment. Talks about the reporting procedures, complaint resolution, and it prohibits retaliation against anyone that makes good faith reporting efforts. Another piece of this is that there's required annual training for sexual harassment.
Does this language mirror other counties or other municipalities or federal government wording?
It would be very close.
And concerns related to this would come to this board now, since this is before this board. If there was a someone who wanted to speak on something that happened to them related to employment status or whatnot?
I don't know if, if we have a case of sexual harassment, for an example, that would be investigated
Okay.
and then it would be dealt with.
Right.
Now, if somebody was terminated or disciplined,
Yeah.
they could, and they were a classified employee, they could bring that to you.
Okay. Yes. I'm sure there's history also that went into some of the maybe depth attached
Sure.
to this and whatnot. Okay. Okay. Mary, were you contacted by anyone to request to make comments?
I was not.
All right. No one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Davidson and second by Bruce to recommend approval of revisions to harassment and discrimination policy as presented. Any further board discussion? All right, time to vote. Sorry, I forgot to vote.
3 yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
Okay. Item 10, discuss and make recommendations to consensual sexual or romantic relationships in the workplace policy. Mary Davis.
This is this is a new policy to the count. This is a new policy,
Okay.
right? It outlines general conduct, what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior in the workplace when there could be a dating relationship type thing going on. This policy does prohibit supervisors from dating their subordinates. And there's also a review and a resolution process. Sometimes people meet at work and, they could go on, date, get married, all of that kind of stuff. And then sometimes we have the ability to, move them around to different shifts and things like that. It all depends on where they work and if there is a good solution to the issue. If there's not a good solution, then one of them would have to decide to go find other employment if we're not able to do that, if we're not able to come to a resolution. And that's kind of what this whole policy speaks to.
And we had a case here, last year, didn't we, where they were talking about the employee dating someone and we were deciding at that time? Didn't we have something last year? I know we did, because they weren't happy with us at the end.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we've had some, we have had some instances of this
Right.
in the workplace, so I think we just need to address it.
Do you feel like the policy is clear that if you did have manager subordinate situation and they did want to pursue it and they wanted to bring it forward for discussion in order to try to do lateral moves or figure out what was going on, are they clear that they're safe to do that? That bringing it forward to ask for that resolution would not put their current employment at risk? Does that make sense? Because
It does.
yeah,
It does.
if they should have the opportunity to move, then they're going to have to disclose that they're either interested in or have begun a relationship. And I would hate for someone to think that they can't talk about what their options are for fear of being in violation of this.
Sure. And really, that depends on what the that really depends on the employees that are involved.
Yeah.
I would hope that if, it could be a department head. If a department head and an employee, I would hope that they would work that out before they brought this forward.
Yeah.
Because in situations like that, you cannot date your subordinates.
You just,
So if you go down that path,
yeah.
then,
Violation.
it's going to be a violation of policy, and that's pretty serious.
Yeah, I think that's what.
Because you put the
what I was
county at
asking.
risk.
Yes, I think that's
Right.
what I was asking is the way it's written, it seems like you could be putting your position in the county at risk if you brought it forward for a resolution. So you would hope that by the time they brought it forward, as they had a proposed, something had already been worked out.
And, we have we have supervisors in our public safety agencies, but they also have the ability to change shifts,
Yeah.
so that's, that's a workable resolution. But if there's not a workable resolution, then we have an issue.
So that would be my question is it clear to the employee that they are responsible for trying to identify a resolution prior to bringing that forward?
Well, I don't think they really need to identify a resolution. They just need to let us know, hey, I started seeing so-and-so, and we work the same shift. So we've got to figure that out.
Okay.
We've got to move, or I want to see so-and-so,
Yeah.
something like that.
And that'd be good faith that they're pursuing
Absolutely
that.
would be good faith. We can try to figure it out. And again, sometimes there's resolutions to these things and sometimes there isn't.
Right,
We
right.
just got to try to figure it out. But getting, not reporting it and getting caught, because there's not a secret around here.
Yeah.
Employees,
Sure.
it usually comes to somebody's attention. And so, if somebody doesn't bring it forward and it's known,
Yeah.
then we would have to go down that path, and that would be a clear violation of the policy, and now we have a different situation on our hands.
Required annual training on this one, right?
There is not required annual training on this one. There's that sexual harassment training,
Right.
and it talks about, you cannot
Yeah.
quid pro quo or whatever.
Yeah.
This for that, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So it touches on this type of thing, but not specifically dating in the workplace.
Okay. Do you think it's enough of a, I anticipate there's financial risk for the county if this goes really wrong. Do you think it's worth considering for annual? I don't know.
We can always see what's out there.
Yeah.
Again, when we have training on the policies, like I said, when these things come out, we're going to talk about this policy for sure. And then when we have new hires coming in,
Yeah.
we talk about this policy.
And managers are very well versed in all these to work with their people.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you contacted by anyone to request to make comments?
I was not.
Okay. No one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion by Davidson, second by Bruce, to recommend approval of revisions to consensual sexual or romantic relationships in the workplace policy as presented. If no further board discussion, please vote.
3 yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
All right, item 11, discuss and make recommendation to hours of work policy. Mary Davis?
Yes. Again, this is new to the personnel rules and regs. And, work schedules vary from department to department, public safety, non-public safety agencies. And so the work schedules are really determined by the elected officials and department heads. And basically, this just really establishes expectations for hours of work, 40-hour work week, 80 hours in a 2-week pay period. It talks about meals and breaks, an hour unpaid lunch hour, 2 15-minute paid breaks if the department can make that work. So it just kind of outlines, our hours of work our hours of work.
This may be helpful in the political activity one that I was
Yeah,
talking about. It's just
exactly.
you have it very clearly written down. What is your work hours? Okay. Anybody, were you contacted by anyone to make comment on this one?
I was not.
Okay. No one requested to appear before the board to give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Davidson and seconded by Bruce to recommend approval of revisions, or I guess creation of the hours of work policy as presented. If no further discussion, please vote.
3 yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
These ones that are new will come up for review again sooner. maybe? Okay.
If they could.
Or you're reviewing these on a regular basis anyway. Okay, item 12. Item 12 is discuss and make recommendations to timekeeping policy. Again, Mary Davis.
Okay, this policy outlines the timekeeping expectations. Hourly employees clock in and out. If they do not work, if they have less than 40 hours of work in a work week, then they're required to put in their paid leave. For for exempt employees, the expectation is 80 hours in a 2-week pay period. So if you're able to flex your time during that 2-week pay period, you can do that. If you don't have 80 hours of work, then you're expected to put in paid time off in order to be compensated for 80 hours.
Does this policy have anything to do with the open comment for today? Is this where a concern like that would be addressed, or that's in a weather?
That's in a weather policy.
In a weather
Yeah.
policy. But it makes sense now that anything under 40 is going to automatically take from a PTO bank.
Sure.
Okay. Were you contacted by anyone to request to make comments?
No, I was not.
Okay. No one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule, therefore no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Davidson and seconded by Bruce to recommend approval of revisions to timekeeping policy as presented. Any further board discussion? If not, please vote.
3 yay, 2 absent, motion carries.
Okay, last one for today. Item 13, discuss and make recommendations to the workplace violence policy. Mary Davis again.
Again, this is a new policy. It was always implied in our code of conduct or code of ethics policy, but this speaks to threatening or violent behavior in the workplace. Sarpy County does not tolerate that behavior. It's prohibited. There's examples of what that exactly means, anything from hitting to shoving to throwing things, threatening to harm an individual or their family, harassing or threatening communications, those type of things. There's reporting procedures on how to report that stuff. And then also, no retaliation for reporting that type of stuff. And hopefully, it's just something that we just need to add to our personnel rules and regs.
It's a good idea. Seems like it mirrors existing workplace violence policies very. Same question about definitions. Some definitions are probably included related to this policy. Whenever you get to the point, this might be one to
Take a look at.
take a look at, just to make sure there was no misinterpretation. Do you need to have anything specific about order of operations of consequences, or is it okay to have this general statement about, depending upon the severity, it could go anything from something in your file to being fired, obviously. So does it need to have more detail than that, or do we want to specifically leave it broad like this because there's such variability?
Yeah, I think we would leave it broad because it's with these types of behavior, it's case by case.
Yes.
On what they're doing. So we would want to leave it as broad as we can. Some things will lead right to termination, and other things might be knock that off.
Yeah.
And
And then if an employee ever felt like the punishment didn't match the crime, that's what this board is for. They could come to this board.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Mary, were you contacted on this one by anyone to make comments?
I was not.
Okay. No one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Davidson and seconded by Bruce to recommend approval of revisions to workplace violence policy as presented. If no further board discussion, please vote.
3 yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
Thank you for your time today, Mary.
Thank you.
All right. That, item 14 is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
You want me to? I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay. Motion by Bruce and seconded by Davidson. Please vote.
Three yea, 2 absent, motion carries.
We are adjourned.
Great. Meeting adjourned at 4:52 p.m.
Mary?
Yes.